I have just bought a Bugatti Veyron with a small issue.
Everything changed the moment Mat Armstrong casually revealed that he had just bought a Bugatti Veyron, and it wasn't the kind of update anyone was expecting. Most people were still focused on his ongoing rebuild of another Bugatti, a project that had already pulled in huge attention and built serious anticipation. Instead of continuing that story, he suddenly introduced an entirely new one, and not just any story, but one involving another multi-million-euro hypercar that came with significant problems. That unexpected twist instantly sparked curiosity, confusion, and excitement all at once. It raised immediate questions about why someone would take on a second Bugatti while still deep into rebuilding the first, what kind of condition this newly acquired car was in, and what exactly made it worth the risk. As more details came out, it became clear that this wasn't something he had been planning for months. The opportunity appeared suddenly while he was in Florida, still working on his previous Bugatti project. Out of nowhere, a repossession company approached him with an offer that seemed almost too good to be true. They had a Veyron that wasn't in perfect shape and were willing to sell it at a significantly reduced price. Considering that these cars usually sell for between 1.5 and 2 million euros, the idea of getting one for far less created a rare and tempting situation. Even then, the decision wasn't simple. He only had around 20 minutes to inspect the car and decide whether to go through with the purchase. That's barely enough time to understand a normal car, let alone something as complex and advanced as a Bugatti Veyron. Still, so he made the call to take the risk, showing a mindset that leans toward bold decisions when a unique opportunity appears. When the car finally arrived back at his workshop in the UK, the moment carried a sense of scale that's hard to overstate. Sitting in the garage was a white-wrapped Bugatti Veyron, a car most people will never see in person, let alone own. But the excitement of that moment was balanced by the reality that this wasn't a pristine example. It came with serious faults that immediately made themselves known. As he began inspecting it more closely, it became obvious that the issues were not minor or isolated. The transmission refused to shift out of park, effectively leaving the car completely immobile. On top of that, the engine wasn't running smoothly, showing clear signs of misfires across multiple cylinders. There was also a visible coolant leak, adding yet another layer to the growing list of problems. Instead of being discouraged, though, he leaned into the challenge. For him, this wasn't just about owning a hypercar or restoring it for the sake of value. It was about understanding the machine, breaking down the problems, and seeing if solutions could be found without relying entirely on the manufacturer. That approach is what makes the situation compelling. It transforms what could have been a straightforward repair story into something closer to a technical investigation, where each step reveals new layers of complexity. As the inspection went deeper, the transmission issue quickly became the main concern. The car simply wouldn't move, stuck in park no matter what was attempted. In a vehicle like the Bugatti Veyron, the gearbox is one of the most advanced and expensive components, and any failure within it can lead to extremely high repair costs. Understanding how it works is key to understanding the problem. The system relies on hydraulic pressure generated by a pump. When the car starts, the pump builds pressure, which then allows solenoids to activate and shift gears. In this case, the pump would briefly activate, but fail to build enough pressure, shutting itself off to avoid damage. Without sufficient pressure, the entire gearbox becomes non-functional. At the same time, the engine issues added another layer of uncertainty. Diagnostic scans revealed multiple misfire codes, including a specific fault indicating that one cylinder had no ion current signal. That kind of error could point to ignition components like coils or spark plugs, but it could also suggest deeper electrical or mechanical issues. Identifying the exact cause isn't always straightforward, especially in a car built with such tightly integrated systems. Then there was the coolant leak, which, while less intimidating than a gearbox failure, still required attention. The presence of fluid underneath the car and a low coolant level indicated a likely issue with the front radiator, possibly caused by debris impact. Individually, each of these problems would be significant. Together, they painted a picture of a car that had been through a lot and would require careful, methodical work to bring back to life. What made the situation even more challenging was the limited access to parts and information. The Bugatti's approach to servicing often involves replacing entire units rather than repairing individual components, which can drive costs to extreme levels. A gearbox replacement alone can reach hundreds of thousands of dollars, making it one of the most expensive repairs in the automotive world. Just as the situation seemed complex enough, another discovery added a completely unexpected twist. While researching the car's history, he uncovered previous registration details that led to older photos and records. In one of those images, his Bugatti Veyron appeared in the same location as another broken Veyron owned by Mark McCann. That connection immediately stood out because both cars were experiencing very similar issues. It wasn't just a visual coincidence. When they compared notes, the similarities extended to gearbox failures, or engine misfires, and even specific error messages. That raised a new set of questions about whether the cars had shared a past connection, possibly through the same owner, dealer, or usage pattern. While there was no definitive proof of a larger issue, the overlap was unusual enough to shift the narrative. What started as a repair project began to feel more like an investigation into how two rare hypercars could end up with nearly identical faults. As the work continued, the focus expanded beyond just fixing the car. It began to touch on broader questions about how high-end vehicles are maintained and repaired. The idea of sealed components, limited parts, availability, and reliance on official service channels creates a situation where owners often have little choice but to accept extremely high costs. By attempting to diagnose and potentially fix the issues independently, he was challenging that model, exploring whether there might be more practical solutions hidden beneath the surface. Step by step, smaller problems were addressed to narrow down the bigger picture. Adding coolant resolved warning lights, suggesting the leak was external rather than catastrophic. The misfires appeared manageable with component-level fixes. That left the gearbox as the central challenge, a problem that would ultimately determine the direction of the entire project. As more people followed the process, the story grew into something larger than a single rebuild. It became part of a wider conversation about repairability, cost, and control. The idea that a single component replacement could cost as much as a house naturally led to questions about whether all failures truly require such extreme solutions. While it's important not to jump to conclusions based on a small number of cases, the visibility of this project brought those questions into the spotlight. Looking ahead, the outcome remains uncertain, and that uncertainty is what keeps the story engaging. There's a real possibility that the gearbox issue could be solved through careful diagnosis and targeted repair, proving that even highly complex systems aren't completely beyond reach. On the other hand, it could confirm that some components are simply too intricate to fix without full manufacturer support. Either result adds value because it replaces assumptions with real-world evidence. At its core, this is no longer just about a broken Bugatti. It's about curiosity, risk, and the willingness to challenge established norms. By taking on a car that many would consider too complicated or too expensive to touch, Mat Armstrong has turned a risky purchase into a deeply engaging journey. Each step forward adds another piece to the puzzle, and with every discovery, the project continues to evolve into something far bigger than a typical rebuild story.